What's going on, everybody? All right, first off, thank you to everybody who came out last night and participated, showed up, watched, chatted in Midlife Live 5. The thing that makes Midlife live streams fun is that so many people show up. And I appreciate all of you that showed up. What a great time. 3 great guys that I had on with me, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as me. Now, to all of you that maybe missed it, it is available, it is recorded, and it is posted on my channel. You can go ahead and check that out. I think that you will definitely get a kick out of it. 3 great guys, 3 entertaining guys. So check that out. Now, this week, I got another batch of great questions, which I'm going to be going through my thoughts on them. Again, I think as time will tell, some of the questions from this week, we will find out that there was probably a right or a wrong answer, but it's hard to know what those are as things stand at this moment. So I'll share my thoughts, my insights, my opinions, and maybe we'll figure out in the long run if some of those were right or not. But I'll certainly, again, share my thoughts. And if you have a question, don't forget down below in the comments, never, ever hesitate to leave it in the comments below. I have an ongoing list of questions from all of you that I continue to pull from and use in future episodes. Now, later this week, I've got a couple of videos lined up, including probably going to be Saturday. I think it's going to be Saturday. Is going to be the Midlife Community Show and Tell of your favorite pickups to your collections over the last month. Thank you to everybody who submitted those by our deadline, which was last Sunday. And it takes me a few days to put these together because it is quite a bit of work, but it is very rewarding. And once again, there are some major pickups. I am really looking forward to sharing that with you. I think you will like it very much. So a couple of things coming up later this week. That's probably going to post on Saturday. Keep an eye out for that. As we wind down the month of May already, my goodness. And if somebody were keeping track of how many work days there are left until summer vacation, including today, the answer would be 3. 3 work days until summer vacation. It's possible that some of us are very excited about that. All right, with that said, let's take a look at your first question here.
This first one says, why has BGS and BVG fallen off the radar when it comes to grading? What happened that they aren't more popular? I like their slabs. Subgrades are great too. Wouldn't they want to seize the opportunity to become a leader in grading with PSA and SGC getting so much heat?
This is an excellent question, and I don't think any of us have the answer yet. There will be case studies done sometime in the future. Now, when I was in college, that was one of my favorite things to do in classes were case studies. We'd be looking at the situation, given the facts, given the summary of what went down, and then coming up with what could have been done differently. So what is it that happened? Again, I'm going to throw out some guesses, but I don't really know. I think that the Beckett company, first of all, one of the things that happened was Dr. Beckett, for many, many years, was the head of the company. And then a few years ago, Dr. Beckett stepped away. So when the figurehead, when the visionary, when the person who was really behind it all steps away and somebody else steps in instead, there's going to be some changes. There are going to be some differences. And that clearly is part of it. I mean, Apple was a big company, and then Steve Jobs stepped away and they slumped. And then Steve Jobs came back and they took off again. That's not a coincidence. the visionary of the whole thing stepping away, it's hard to replace some people. Now, I think that it's probably a pretty complicated situation. Number one, I think that Beckett didn't just rely on grading. Beckett is doing a lot of things. They have a grading department, right? They have an online database department. They have the grading department. They have. Did I say that twice? They have a lot of different categories. They're doing prices, values, grade, price guides, right? They have so many irons in the fire at different places. Sometimes what happens is when you're trying to do everything, you're not doing as good a job at each thing. But when there's only one thing that you're doing, you can get really good at it. You look at some restaurants like In-N-Out Burger. Now, if you live on the West Coast, you've definitely been to an In-N-Out. If you're on the East Coast, it's possible. They've spread quite a bit. Their menu, Chick-fil-A, same thing. Their menus are very small, but they're really good at what they do. And because they're really good at what they do, they get very efficient. They are able to go all in that. But sometimes when you have a bunch of different things that you're doing, and then one of the things starts to struggle, and one of the main things that has struggled is, we've gone away from print. And the bread and butter from Beckett was the magazine and the book. And as we've gone to a digital world, that is a struggle because how do you stay relevant? And then other things are popping up that are starting to do things better, like Card Ladder and VCP and Market Movers. They're doing things better in the database and in the pricing department than you are now. And so then your revenue slumps there, which gives you less revenue to infuse into other areas. I think that might be part of it. But to me, my guess is what happened during the pandemic is a whole bunch of people either entered the hobby or re-entered the hobby. And when they did it, they looked, okay, grading. What's this grading all about? Who am I going to go with? Now, Beckett is a recognizable name for people re-entering the hobby. It's not a recognizable name for people entering the hobby. But PSA has been around for a long time. They're really the first big player, and SGC was not far behind. And then it was a couple years later or so that Beckett got involved. And so the gold standard has kind of been PSA. So I think a lot of people were like, where do I go? Which one do I use? The gold standard was kind of PSA. Now, there was a period of time when Beckett entered the race that Beckett was sort of the front runner. They were doing very, very well. But I think a few things happened. And this is just my guess. Again, to answer your question, I don't know. To throw out some stuff against the wall and see if it might be part of it, that's what I'm doing. Again, I think that the fact that they are doing multiple things makes it hard to focus on the one thing. I think that some of the other areas were starting to slump, which was bleeding some money into those areas. They lost their visionary. But with the grading themselves, when you go to PSA, there is PSA. When you went to SGC, there was SGC. And they had very easy interfaces to submit your cards for grading, even for a new person into the hobby. But then Beckett, you've got BCCG, you've got autograph authentication, you've got BVG, you've got BGS. And to somebody who's new to the whole thing, that's a little confusing. Now, if you've been in the hobby for a long time, you're like, what are you talking about? That's not confusing. But I think it could be a little bit confusing. Okay, I've got this card from 1983. Does it go to BGS, BVG, BCCG, Beckett Authentication? Where is it going? And I think that is enough of a complication that people go, well, when I go to SGC, it's just SGC. It's just this one submission form. It's this one category. I think that might be part of it. I think if you are new to the hobby, all of the different names, all of the different acronyms, all of the different options, it makes it too much. I think another thing that it could be, again, I'm just spitballing. I don't know. But as much as people say they want an explanation for their grades, which Beckett provides, right? They have subgrades. Well, depending on which of the multiple options you choose, you get some subgrades. But that adds cost because it's more labor. It adds time, which slows down the turnaround time. So then people are not happy because Beckett is slow and Beckett is not cheap. See, SGC is cheap and fast, and part of it is because it's simple. They don't have to worry about autographs. They don't have to worry about, is it vintage? Is it modern? Is it They don't. It's just card comes in, card gets graded, card goes out. Same holder, same situation. Makes it much easier to scale when it's simple. And I think if you look at those three grading companies, PSA, Beckett, and SGC, the most complicated system was Beckett. There were multiple options. Then when you get it, it takes longer to turn around because of the subgrades. And when people are in the pandemic and cards are going up rapidly in price, what they want is they want their card to be graded as soon as possible for as cheap as possible with the highest sale price because of the slab as possible. And SGC was fast. SGC was efficient. SGC was easy to deal with. SGC was easy to submit to. But SGC didn't have, at the time, quite the resale price. That was their only holdup. PSA was not the cheapest. It was not the fastest, but it had the resale value. And Beckett was kind of slow, okay on resale value, kind of confusing, kind of complicated, and it was harder to speed up the process when there was much more to go along with it. I think that's probably what happened. I think it's, you're losing your visionary, your leader, your slabs aren't sleek and thin like PSA. You're not fast like SGC. You're not cheap like SGC. You've got the subgrades, which complicates things. You've got all these different options on the menu for a new person. So when you're a new person coming in, you just go, this website and submission form is too complicated. I don't really know what I want to do. This one's very simple. Click, click, I'm done. That's my guess. So what's going to happen from here? I hope that Beckett can pick it up. I'll tell you that. I want Beckett to be successful. Absolutely. If Beckett went away, that would not be good for collectors. That would not be good for lowercase collectors, all of us. It would be great for uppercase collectors, the company. It would be bad for us. We need as many viable options as possible that are going to force competition, which is going to keep prices low and is going to help customer satisfaction. But we all know this. So what is going to happen? I don't know. What did happen? I don't know. But that's what I think happened. If I'm missing something, tell me down below in the comments.
This next one says, "Hi, Greg. I have a question for next week. When you look up the price of the 1951 Bowman Mantle and Mays rookie cards and compare them to the price of the 1954 Topps Aaron rookie card, why is Aaron so cheap? He has better offensive numbers than Mantle or Mays. I will give you Mays was a better defender, but still, why the disrespect?
Great question, fun question, interesting question. A lot of people would say, yeah, Hank Aaron is a better hitter than Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays. So why are Hank Aaron cards worth less? Why is his rookie card? And when you look at the three cards, probably, in my opinion, the most attractive of the three is probably the Hank Aaron rookie card. So why isn't it worth more than the other two? Well, again, I think it's complicated. For one, we have to talk about pop reports, population. Because, remember, the price of anything is supply and demand. So let's talk about supply first. There are about twice as many Hank Aaron rookie cards that have been graded than Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays. So it's much easier to acquire a Hank Aaron rookie card than it is a Willie Mays or a Mickey Mantle. I think that's part of it. But again, supply is just part of it. The other part of it is demand. Now, when you think about demand, a lot of us, and listen, I've talked about this endlessly as well. I have absolutely looked at, man, Rocky Colavito is really good. His numbers are really good. Why aren't his cards worth more? You know, there are a lot of guys that fit that category. He was good. Elston Howard, really good. Why aren't his cards worth more? You know, I could go on and on and on about that list. And I have gone on and on about that list. But when it comes down to it, demand, and you could make the argument that Hank Aaron is better than those two. You could make the argument that those two are better than Hank Aaron. But that's kind of irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant is the demand, not the quality, but the demand. See, let's just think about high school. So play the thinking back to dream music, for a second. Thinking back to high school, who was your homecoming queen? Who was your homecoming king? Okay, so think about those two people for a second. Now, some of us are like, I don't know, I couldn't have cared less. Great. But a lot of us probably, maybe remember who our homecoming king and queen were. Did those people also in the yearbook get most likely to succeed? My guess is probably not. Because if so, why did they have a most likely to succeed category if they already had voting for homecoming king and queen? If the homecoming king and queen are the most likely to succeed, why did they have that category in the yearbook? Well, they had that category in the yearbook because quality and potential and ability is different than homecoming king and queen. Homecoming king and queen is a popularity contest. It's who is the most liked. And Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays are more popular than Hank Aaron. Doesn't mean they were better. Doesn't mean their quality is higher. And maybe it does. Maybe they are as well. But that's a completely different discussion. This discussion is, why are the prices higher? Well, one, the supply is half as much. And two, Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays are more popular. And why is that? Well, it's a lot of things, but let's just start with the 1951 World Series. The 1951 World Series was against two very good teams, the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. See, there wasn't the MLB package back then. People didn't get to see a lot of games, and people didn't get to hear a lot of games. But the World Series were ones that they tended to take the forefront of the news. The rookie year of those two players, they faced off in the World Series. And then for the next 10 years, those teams, along with the Dodgers and a couple of other teams sprinkled in, were some of the best teams that were in the news, that were on television, that were on the radio, that were at the forefront. Not to mention, they were in New York. Well, the Giants were for a few more years. They were in New York. It's sort of like how, Shohei being on the Dodgers versus being on the Brewers makes Shohei's cards more valuable. If Shohei went to the Brewers, I don't think his cards would be worth as much. Just a guess. If Aaron Judge was on the Padres, I don't think Aaron Judge would be quite as popular. The market that you're in matters. So, we've got two popular guys in two major markets where early in their career, when the economy and the country is booming after World War II, are on TV and on the radio and on the newspaper. And those guys were the superstars of their teams. And it probably wasn't until a year or two into their careers that they were the superstars, but they were the superstars of their teams. And then the Giants moved, which got media attention. So when the Dodgers moved and when the Giants moved, it's not like San Francisco's a small market. It's not like LA, where the Dodgers went, is a small market. And the move itself gains attention for the teams and the players that are moving. I just think those teams and those players were at the top of the news cycle. And what was happening in some of these other areas like Milwaukee just wasn't. Again, the homecoming queen is a popularity contest. The most likely to succeed is the person who checks a lot of boxes and has a lot of potential. So sometimes it's not about who was better. It's about who was popular.
This one says, question: will inaccurate pop reports because of resubs ever impact prices? Have they already?
So I'm about to say that I don't know how much pop reports matter after I just showed pop reports as part of my explanation why some cards were more valuable than others. So get the rotten fruit and tomato ready to throw at me because I'm going to be dodging it here. I don't know how much that matters. And the reason I don't think it matters is not because pop reports don't matter, but let's just take the example that I just used with the Mantle and the Mays and the Hank Aaron rookie cards. I think all of those cards have had a lot of cracks and resubmits. So because all three have had a lot of cracks and resubmits, I still think there are a lot more Hank Aaron's in circulation than Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle rookie cards in circulation. Even though I don't think there are nearly the number in circulation as there are on the pop reports because of how many have been cracked and resubmitted. But I don't think that like those cards, like the Aaron has been exponentially more cracked and resubmitted than the Mays to make a big difference. I think most people with most cards understand a lot of cards. The pop report is just kind of a guess because a lot of cards have been cracked and resubmitted. But I also think that with low pop, and what is low pop? Let's just say for the sake of conversation, a low pop card is one with a total population under 100, under 50. I do think it would matter there. I do think if there's a total pop of a certain card of 12 and there's actually only 6 of them, but the pop reports say 12 because of cracks and resubmits, that could affect some pricing stuff. I do think that. But for most cards, I think everybody knows that, especially more valuable cards, the total population is really a decent amount less than what the pop reports say. But that's not really the case with ultra low pop reports. So for the most part, I don't think it really matters because I think it's kind of built into what people already think is happening for most cards. But for really low population cards, it could definitely throw some things out of whack a little bit.
My good friend Adam of A Vintage Sanctuary says, Greg, you are a machine, my complex, olive-complexed friend. Oh man, it sounds like my friend could use a new quiver of questions, so I will provide one in this hypothetical. You are buying a card in the grade of a PSA 1 or SGC 1 because you really want the card and can only obtain it in that grade. The card must have one major flaw, such as heavy creases, significant paper loss, severely rounded corners, significant fading, miscut, extreme toning or staining, a significant hole in the card, an entire corner missing, registration way off, the margins have been totally trimmed off, a big spider was smashed onto the card and cannot be removed, etc. Assuming you are able to select among several ones, and each one has exactly one of the major flaws, which flaw do you pick for your card and why? P.S. Of course, if you deem this question to be too flawed, feel free to throw it out.
First, my buddy Adam, fantastic guy, great channel, one of my favorite people that I've met in the hobby. When I talk, when you go, oh man, I've met a lot of great people in the hobby. Adam is a great, great guy. This is an easy one for me. Everybody's going to have, I think a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people are going to have a different opinion on this. But for me, it's easy. For me, I look at it and I go, this is just a no-brainer. Because one of the things I love about collecting is so evident with one of the responses that's a lot less evident with some of the other responses. So I want to explain it this way. I want to explain it with a prop. So now I'm Carrot Top, I guess. I've got props. So I wear a ring on my right hand. So this is my wedding band. I wear a ring on my right ring finger as well. And that is just a gold band. And that is the wedding band of my papa, my mom's dad, my grandpa. One of my favorite people that has ever lived is my grandpa. And about a day or two before he passed away, and everyone knew he was going to pass away. He was battling stuff. And my mom took his wedding band. My mom asked me, what do you want from your grandparents' house? What are the things that you want? And there wasn't a lot of things that I was like, well, I want this, I want that. But one of the things I said to my mom was, I want Papa's wedding ring. And I wanted his wedding ring for a few reasons. He was married to my grandma for 70 years. And when you're married to someone from 70 years, that says a lot about a person. For two people to coexist together for 70 years, that's impressive. Well, they were together for 70 years. And if there's any symbol of love in this world for me, if there's any way of sharing that memory of what that represents to me, it's his wedding ring. And so I wear that. I've never shared that on the channel. Now, the next thing I'm going to share, and you're saying, I thought we were talking about sports cards, and now you're talking about your grandpa and his wedding ring. Hold on. Stay with me. I've actually never shared this with anyone. I've never told my mom this. I've never told my brother this. I've never told my wife this. One of the things that I did, see, when I would go to my grandpa's house and we would hang out and sit in their living room together, they always had a fire going. Because number one, my grandma was always cold. Number two, they lived up in the foothills, actually really close to where gold was discovered that started the gold rush. I mean, really close to there. Maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes from there. And they always had a fire going in the fireplace. Well, I remember going up there time and time again, and my grandpa was always tending to the fire to make sure that my grandma was warm. He was always had the fireplace loaded. He had logs by the fire. He was always filling it. He was always keeping it going. It was a never-ending job. He would keep the fire going all night so that it never went out. And so that's something I remember about him. And that's something that is very symbolic of the type of person that he was. So after my grandpa passed away and they were moving my grandma into a care facility, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I got were his gloves for his fireplace. And so I have had these stored for several years. Now, when you look at this, these gloves to me, that tells a story. There's a history to this. He used those gloves to... I'm getting the goosebumps. I'm getting old. I'm getting emotional and old. He used those gloves to take care of his wife, my grandma. That's the example I want to remember. That's what I want to be like. I want to be the spouse that takes care of his spouse. And when I look at these gloves, you can't replicate that. The only way to make gloves look like this, the only way, is using them for years and years and years of pulling logs in and out of fires. It's the only way to get them to look like that. And so, just like this ring is a symbol of his love, these gloves are a symbol of his love. And these gloves tell a story. A crease could mean anything. Being way off center and miscut could mean anything. A stain could mean anything. But heavily rounded corners tell a story. They tell a story of something that was loved. They tell a story of a cherished item that somebody handled a lot. Because to have four heavily worn corners, that means that card was handled over and over and over and over and over. And you only handle a card that much if you love it. So a card with heavily rounded corners, it tells a love story. It tells a love story of somebody's love of that particular card. And that, to me, is amazing. I don't mind rounded corners on an old card at all. because it just tells part of the story. So the other issues that Adam mentioned could have been anything that caused them. But not anything can have 4 heavily rounded corners. Only one thing could create 4 heavily rounded corners. Somebody loved the card, and somebody looked at the card a lot. And to me, that is an awesome story that card gets to tell. Just like these gloves, they tell a story of love as well.
And finally, this one says, "Hi, with the number of youth interested in cards and physical collectibles in general, will card prices plummet when us old guys get older and sell all at the same time? Thanks for your videos, friend, Mark."
So, the beauty the beauty of this question is this is the sort of question that I myself would ask. This is the sort of thing I think about as well. So I love it. I'm going to tell a story. So sometimes you're related to someone, you're like, how am I related to them? So my wife's brother's wife's dad. So my sister-in-law in-law's dad, his name was Larry, great guy, passed away a few years ago. But he was one of those guys that, you just look at someone, you're like, that guy, he's got wisdom. That guy is a person that I should be asking questions to and talking to, because he's got a lot of good stuff to share. You know how there are some people in your life you meet and you're just like, that guy knows stuff. I need to acquire as much of that knowledge as I can whenever I'm around him. Well, Larry was one of those guys. And I said to Larry, we were sitting there one time. I was probably, 25 years old at the time. So this is probably 20 years ago. And I said, Larry, he was talking about the stock market. I said, Larry, here's something I've always wondered. If all these baby boomers are saving money for retirement, they're saving and saving and saving. Every month, their 401k, their Roth IRA, they're saving. And then all of these baby boomers are going to be retiring at the same time. And then they're going to start pulling money out of the stock market all at the same time. Isn't that going to make all of the stock prices crash? I mean, if a huge number of our workforce stops contributing into all those stocks and starts withdrawing from their investment in all those stocks, isn't that going to cause a crash? And he kind of chuckles. And he goes, no. He goes, it won't. And I'm like, what do you mean it won't? Why? Why? If people aren't putting as much in and people are taking money out. And he said, there's always going to be someone to replace them, number one. If the price goes down, people will be there to buy it up. He said, but also when people sell those stocks, they're going to go take that money and spend it. And that money is then going to go from in the stock market to into the economy, which will stimulate the economy, which will keep the stock market healthy. I was like, I think that makes sense. I kind of feel like that's the same sort of answer. You know, as time goes by, some of those cards that we're talking about, some of these old cards, I hate to say it, they'll get lost. They'll get tossed. Natural disasters will ruin them. The number of cards is never going to go up from like the vintage era, which is what you're referring to. It's never going to go up, and it's slowly going to go down and down and down and down because stuff's going to happen. There are going to be house fires. There are going to be burglaries. There are going to be, again, tornadoes, things will happen and the supply will continue to go down. In addition, some people are going to go, oh, my dad, he loved his baseball cards. I want to keep these few, and I'm going to put them up in my display case because they remind me of him. I think that's part of it, is I think the supply will continue to drop some. But I also think there's always going to be new people entering. And I know that we feel like, no, but this time, this youth is different than previous youths. In the past, the kids, had a respect for history, and now they have no respect for history. The kids now are only addicted to their devices. And some are, but more are not that way than we think. I think that it's kind of normal for kids to not care about history as much as... I think that the amount that they care and will care is us older guys we get more and more cynical. And I think that the youth actually has more potential than we give them credit. But every time I turn around, look, Garrett, Ballpark Memories, he's a young guy. He's dealing vintage and pre-war cards. I was just watching Sports Card Live this past weekend on Saturday night, Sports Card Live with Jeremy Lee. And one of his guests, his kid was 15 years old. And he collects vintage basketball. He was showing Wes Unseld cards. There are going to be more and more people who get involved. And I really do think that historically speaking, sports cards have been, the United States have been the dominant group that spends time and money on sports cards. I think that as we become a more global society, I think you're going to start to see cards become more global. Basketball has expanded. Baseball has expanded. Football, they're doing things in Europe all the time now. I think that the growth of the three major sports especially is growing. And I think that the hobby is becoming an international hobby. Again, that's just a guess, but I do feel that way. So if the United States has, I don't know, what do we have? 370 million people or something? That's a very small percentage of the world. So if a very small percentage of the world were to start getting into cards, I think, and a very small percentage of those started getting into vintage cards, in addition to the young people who grow up and then kind of graduate into vintage, I think vintage cards are going to be just fine. And everyone I talk to, my dad, Orlando, all these guys that have been around for a while, they say they've been saying the same thing for 30 years. And vintage is as popular as it's ever been. So I'm not that worried about it. Plus, if you're collecting for the sake of collecting, and you're not collecting because you're trying to make a profit over time, who cares anyways? Right? Just enjoy the collecting. But I think that there are going to be plenty of suitors for our collections when our days run out. As always, thank you to everybody who asked a question this week. Down below in the comments, don't hesitate to ask one yourself. I appreciate you guys watching.